I'm going to call the meeting. I'm going to call the meeting back to order. It is 7:55. We just finished A5. We're gonna jump to item A8 at the moment, and it's just time and everything, and then we'll revisit the other two remaining ones. So item A8 that we're jumping to, we have Judge Flood here to present a request for budget adjustment to provide additional security services for Bremerton Municipal Court. So Judge, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, it's lit up so you can hear me now.
Good
evening, and thank you, City Council members and President Coughlin, to the mayor. The City of Bremerton, as you all have just heard, we are in a crisis in our downtown corridor area, and the Bremerton Municipal Court is not immune. I have attached as supporting documents for the request incidents that have escalated over the last 6 weeks. And I asked Chief Wolfe to stay because it affects his department as well. This last week, we had to take an individual into custody after finding out that meth was smoked in our bathrooms. And that's happened twice in the last month. We've also had an incident where there's been feces spread in our bathroom. Currently, the way that the Bremerton Municipal Court is set up as far as security is it's contracted for the front door coming in and out. There's a wand. We do not have any scanning equipment to see what's being brought in, but everyone's wand down. And there's been plenty of times where the security officers looked in the purse and found drug paraphernalia. With the new code being passed, we're seeing, as I mentioned at the safety committee meeting, the increase of possession and use coming through the courts. A judge, the presiding judge, it's my responsibility to ensure that the staff is safe and our community is safe. And leading back to when the window was broken last year in February, when I first came into office, less than 30 days in the office, we had to break in. We've had several small little security incidents that have happened, but they're escalating because we need the defendants to come to court in person. With COVID, there wasn't as much of a need, but we're fully open. There's rarely that these individuals have access to Zoom. Our mask mandate has been reduced, and we're also required by the code to have our bathrooms open. As a security measure, we did have our facilities come in and put locks on the doors, but we do have to still allow access. So once they're in the bathroom, what happens? We still don't have any control over. I think we've had to call the Bremerton Police Department very often, I want to say in the last couple of weeks, for support. I did reach out to Chief Wolfe first to see what kind of support they could provide to us. We're now transporting defendants from the jail for hearings twice a month. That takes 3 of his men to be able to do that and support the court. And so that's been working very well. We also have the issue behind not having the day-to-day. We've had defendants leave the courtroom angry. We had a defendant run from the courtroom because they needed to be taken into custody. So these are all things, again, they're escalating the foot traffic that's coming into the court just on a daily basis to schedule hearings, whether it's a litigation hearing or a contested hearing, to pay fines. That's downstairs. Upstairs, we're seeing a volume of upwards of 50 individuals on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, are heavy days. I've worked with Melinda to take on the recommendation that Chief Wolfe made of contacting Seattle's Best, and they have provided us some support. And one of those support days was the day in which the last defendant was smoking in the bathroom. He was able to assist in detaining until the 2 officers came from the Birmingham Police Department. So in no way do I want to be sitting here in front of you saying all of these things have happened, but they have, and it's not getting any better. As you can see from the timeline, it's getting worse. And we're at a place where I'm afraid for my staff. I'm afraid for myself. I'm afraid for the people in our community that come into our courtroom if we don't have adequate security. The estimate is asking that we be able to have in our budget of $60,000 to get us to the end of the year. In next year's budget, we will put a proposal in for the year. We're estimating a need for about 3.5 days of extra secured officers from Seattle's Best. And they have really made a difference in the few times that we've been able to have them there with the few dollars we had in the budget that Mike okayed for us to use. But we know that the need is there. I will just say the last time that I came as far as asking for additional funds was supporting the AV media grant. That construction has been very successful. It did get completed and we did receive extra dollars from the state. So that amount that we requested that we would need, we didn't actually need. Maybe there was a couple of thousand, but the state came in, gave us more money as they saw the need to support that. So that construction, again, has made it possible for us to be able to have people in the courtrooms and to be able to have the media sounds and not the issues that we were having prior to that. So that is the request of the court. We're starting a possible 3-day trial tomorrow. It would grant me great relief to know that there's some funding coming or allocated to our extra security.
And Colton, thank you, Judge Flood. Council, for awareness, this item was requested to be added yesterday. I think I got the request about 5 o'clock. And so I allowed it to go on the agenda for discussion. The request was to take action, but again, due to the Open Public Meetings Act, we cannot take action on items without at least 24 hours notice to the public. So I'd wanted to make clear that was the request. And so after discussion, we have our usual options of deciding to take action at a next meeting, deciding not to, or there's the option to hold a special meeting should council decide that that time is of the essence. But with that, Public Safety Chair Fry, the floor is yours for any questions or comments and summing up. I know this came to Public Safety, I think, a couple days ago, at least the topic.
Yes, it did come before Public Safety and we did discuss it briefly. We tried to provide some reassurance of support and did reference budget process. So I think it was our understanding that it was going to be something that would be examined during the budget process. I wasn't aware of how much of an emergency type of situation this is. You know, I've been asking you about safety there since the beginning, and I am always concerned about safety in a courtroom. I've been in too many where I've seen things go bad, and they can go bad really quick. And there's real risk there. Although, again, like every administration proposal that comes to us a bit late, you know, we're going to complain about it and we're going to say, geez, and it's hard to weigh in against something like this. And yet my understanding is you're out of money. Is that, I mean, there's no like extra money to pay for this in your budget or anything.
No.
It's an extra
I don't know
expense.
if that would be correct. Mike could probably explain it a little bit better, but there was not any money designated specifically in our budget request for this line item. And I think that's the issue.
So currently within supply services and taxes, within the appropriation, there's $50,000 left in the budget with a monthly expenditure rate about $27,000 to $30,000. So no anticipated to spend the allowable funding will exceed that. We look for room within the budget for potential cuts, and the lines we looked at were already exceeding budget to current date.
Boy, that's tough. I think I need paper on this. Not that I like to ask for more paper, but it seems like I need more of an understanding of this fiscally. That's
Yeah, so you know, and I'm just going to chime in here. And Judge Flood knows she's come to public safety, and I've got the date here, February 2nd. So it's been a minute since and that's when you came to say that you wanted additional security. Stabbing outside of the courthouse, several threats, phone calls, windows broken out. And so you came to us at that point in time and wanted additional security. Did we approve any funding since then? No. So we kind of have given the head nod for extra security, but the problem is it hasn't come to us as an agenda bill. And I'm a little in agreement with I think mainly I just kind of want verification. Sorry about that. He's enjoying a Cookie Monster cookie. If this is an accurate amount that's projected for staffing, this seems like, I mean, I guess when other departments bring items, they know right to the penny exactly how much it's going to be. They don't have a large estimated amount. I doubt it's going to be exactly $60,000 for staffing.
So with this request, because it's a contract, we have a contract rate for the personnel being
Okay.
used, and we have the amount of hours and days that's being requested by the court. So it is that dollar amount to
Okay.
project through the year end based on the days they think they need coverage for. So I would say 60,000 is pretty accurate.
Okay. Well, I feel better now. Thank you. So just so y'all know, I mean, she did come back in February, and we kind of gave the head nod and assurance that we'd give her this. So, I'm in support of it.
Denny?
Thank you, Judge Flood. Sorry that the court has been experiencing all this. The risk liability aspect in me thinks it's pretty smart to approve this. I would hate for something to happen and a request be on the books that there was a request for added security. So I know we can't take action on it tonight, but I would recommend it goes on consent for next week.
Their council members? Yes, Mockler.
Thanks. I'd like to see paper. Here we I entirely accept Judge Flood's verbal assurance, and I entirely accept Director Riley's verbal assurance. But I would just like to see paper. Like, what's the contract? Who's it with? And then really pretty darn soon, we're going to have to start thinking, well, what happens next? Because I'm assuming, Judge Flood, that you don't imagine that this will vanish as smoke at the strike of New Year's Eve. Right? So
We
need
will
to-
plan to be requesting 2 security officers in the 2024 budget, just so that you know. This was in the budget that we put forth for 2023, and it was removed from the budget.
Okay.
Anticipating that we would be open more and that this would be coming. The issue in which you're saying you want to see paper, this came from Melinda in contracts from the city, putting this together and talking with the security officers. This did not come from Judge Flood creating that hocus pocus number.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure you understood.
No, I assumed that somewhere there was paper and just saying, I'd like to see it.
There isn't a contract though, because we can't do a contract until you say you're okay with the funds. That's what I'm understanding.
Oh, that we approve, people say, here's the contract we'd like to enter into. Can you give us the money? And we go, yay or nay, usually yay. So I'd just like to, Director Riley is telling us that there is a contract.
No, the process, we can have a draft contract. We've been working with Seattle's finance. There's also a procurement steps that need to take place. This is all come up pretty recent. Melinda has spent a lot of time in the last couple of days working with the court to determine cost, determine need, to work with the vendor that was not worked through our office to procure, that was through a recommendation of BPD. So now we've had to do our due diligence and get quotes to make sure they are a reasonable cost. So they are ready to go to be able to execute a contract and bring to council if the council would entertain this being on the agenda. As Council President mentioned yesterday, this was added to the agenda at 5 p.m. Last night to be here today. So there's a process that can be done, and that contract would be sitting in front of you for a vote in the public meeting. But again, there's not a whole lot of time between then and now to move forward.
Would we have it by like, here I'm truly just asking, and pardon me for ignoring you, Judge Flood, but I figure this is more for Director Riley. Is that correct? Okay. Would we be able to have that information by like, say, Monday morning?
Yeah, if we're getting a head nod tonight, you want to move this forward. Yeah, Melinda's very close to putting something together. We can add it to the packet.
That sounds really great. And the bailiff that we approved earlier this year, that's
That's a different process.
that's only for the defendants.
That's when we have trials.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. I'm totally okay with getting this Monday and putting it on general business. That's
There council member questions, comments? I have some, if not. Wait, good now.
I'll just kind of agree with Councilmember Dennehy. I think I'd be okay with this going on consent. It's not a lot of money. And if we're going to err, I'd like to err on the side of safety and speed on that.
So, no one else wants to talk in. So, Judge, can you walk me through what the current situation is? What is the number of bailiff security personnel in their roles at the moment?
One. We have one security officer who's contracted at the front door,
And who's that contract with?
who's unarmed. Thank you. He is unarmed.
Unarmed. Is that contract with Seattle's Finest, or
No,
who's that contract with?
Melinda's online. I think she can answer that.
It's
question.
Merchant Patrol. We have multiple contracts from Merchant Patrol Services. We've actually increased their contract for the city contract. They oversee like our lots and on the court property. And then we have a separate contract for the security officer that is at the door during court operations.
Sorry, can you restate that again?
No,
Just a little slower, Director.
So I'll summarize. So the Merchant Services, Merchant Patrol as a full-time security officer that maintains at the door during the court's operations, but it is unarmed compared to the security guard there right now that they brought on that is an armed guard.
Okay, thank you. And then the bailiff mentioned is
He's there when there's trials.
just one trials, and that's a contract with
No, that's
no.
an employee.
That's an employee.
On-call employee.
on-call employee.
He's
Okay.
on call when he's available, because Kitsap County is in a big trial. He is not available. So we will be starting a trial tomorrow without a bailiff
Okay. Thank you. That's good information.
and without a security officer that's armed.
And then for Seattle's Finest, so we do not currently have a contract with them through the city, or we do, or?
Sales finance, we do not. We've
We
been kind of an on-call under the level that we had worked with them and did not require a contract. Now it's at the tipping point. It requires a contract. So that's where we're at.
Okay. One full-time contractor with Merchant Patrol that patrols the door during court operations, the bailiff as needed on call. This would be a new contract with Seattle's Finest for, I want to get it right, one full-time armed security guard.
The request in the contract would be an up to $60,000 contract is what the judge is requesting. They'll give 3.5 days per week through December 31st.
3.5 days per week through December. Okay. And then whenever there's a request for budget adjustment, I think it's due diligence to dig into that a little. And so I want to go back, Director Riley, to something you said, and I want to make sure I got it right. Which part of the court budget has $50,000 left with monthly expenditures of close to 30, if I wrote it down correctly?
That's when the budget control supplies, services and taxes, which is with our professional service contracts, our office supplies, things like that. That budget is about $50,000. There's still some unpaid bills that are still outstanding, but that was at the time we ran the information.
Okay. And so it being mid-September, that particular item is gonna, category of budget is, it sounds like it's gonna be run out of money by definitely end of October.
Correct.
Okay.
Right now, we're projected to exceed budget in that budget control category.
Okay. And then are there other budget categories under the court that are in a similar position to run out before the end
That's
of
a
the year?
primary, that's where kind of primarily everything lives. There obviously is personnel, which the court has brought to different FTE adjustments throughout the year, temporary ads. We can kind of continue to work within the confines of their budget once approved, but with vacancies, there is some room within their personnel budget overall, probably at year end, but still projecting pretty close.
Okay. And then this 60,000, if we do the budget adjustment, is that coming from general fund?
Correct.
Okay. So I also don't want to mess around with safety first. I think that's critical, both for city liability should something happen and just being a human being. And I want to make sure that no harm comes to anyone in that courthouse. I do think, however, we're going to be going into budget season here in October, and the whispers I'm hearing, and everyone knows economy wise, is everything costs a lot more. Some revenues are up, but not as much as things are costing. It's not going to be we're not going to have a lot of extra money. It's going to be a very tough budget season throughout the city, is my understanding. And so my expectation, if this goes forward, is like every other city department and the tough choices we're going to make, the court may need to prioritize certain services. And I think prioritizing safety is absolutely the right call. But that may have to come at the expense of other categories. And I want to say that out loud because we can't take lightly that we can't print money. So that's just kind of my expectation, Judge Flood, going into budget season, that we have to take a hard look, I think. This triggered that. Any other comments or questions from council? I'm hearing otherwise we're okay with this going forward, or yes?
Well, it may not be germane, but my goodness, we're going, what's going to happen? How much is this budget going to be exceeded by for the courts? We've already got the 60K.
So currently at $50,000 left in that category, in the category we're discussing, at
Yeah.
about $30,000 per month. That would get it 60 in 2 months. We're probably going to be short 30 to 40,000 without this addition.
So we're talking an extra almost 100 grand. I mean, that's
So
100. I mean, it's
the
really
rec-
about 100 grand.
Yeah, and so the proposal at year end would to be reallocates if there's any savings in supplies in their salaries, to reallocate that to the overrun in the other categories.
How common is this for departments to be over budget by $100,000?
It's pretty uncommon for the city.
Okay. So, okay, thank you.
And actually, I'll jump in as well with a follow-up question. So in that case, when either, I'm sorry, to be clear, or not being a department, but a separate branch of government, but obviously city council in charge of budget. But when either a branch of government or a department exceeds a budget category like that, is there a procedure where basically, purchases or expenditures are stopped because there's nothing left in the budget category, or does it automatically come out of general fund to compensate for that going over budget? What's kind of the process there?
Good question. So we send out monthly reports and we track everybody's budget to budget actuals. And when we see something getting close, or we see categories that are near exceeding, we have a conversation. Obviously, it's an elected department. All other departments are in the mayor's office, and we have that conversation. They are at that point, they make adjustments necessary to not exceed their authority until they come to council to discuss why they need additional authority. There are times throughout the year we come to council where there's needs and they need additional authority. This ask is, within the normal. I won't say normal. Normally it's a little more time, but that's what happens to give the additional authority. Being as close to the budget as they are, I think there's things in the program that I think have changed. There's restricted funds that does have authority we cannot use. That has to do with the therapeutic court program. That this is ineligible and within the remaining budget there. So,
Yeah, thanks for that. Then, then he,
So just for clarification, we do have authority if there are some vacancies to move personnel funding into that fund. Did I hear that correctly?
there's a potential.
A
So we're
potential.
tracking right now with the court. They have temporary staff that they're paying anywhere up to amount of hours per week, and that it changes depends on the needs of the court, and they're paid a dollar amount, a set dollar amount. So we try to track that from a financial perspective, but we don't know exactly how much time they're going to use. So it's very kind of reactionary, but we are watching that. So right now it's trending pretty close to actual authorized budget, but there could be savings there that depending on the use of those individuals. They still have some, like I said, there's still vacancies that are in the court, but they're continuing to hire. I think we just approved to bring somebody on. So that might be close and there might not be available. I can't promise that.
The position that we just filled is funded by a grant. And so we still have positions that are unfilled, that are full-time positions. So in looking at funding the grants and having attended a meeting again today, which was very timely, and understanding, questioning around how grant funds are allocated, the way that the state set the parameters for us is if there's an employee that spends time on the community court, then that time comes out of that grant funding that pulls away from their regular salary. They're to track that. They provided us with a spreadsheet to do so. Our dedicated staff person who just started today, his salary comes fully from the grant funding. And if he spends time on something else, that hour or 2 hours does not come out of that. So that is how the grant funding, which is now appropriated funds from the state, works. So there's some of that information that has not gone to our finance department because figuring out how they want us to track that and how things are coded. Those we just got codes, I believe, June, July of this year. And all of that we should have hopefully figured out by the end of September. So court's concern in being here today is because of the escalation that has happened. If there had not been an escalation, then we would be able to follow the normal process. But I was in a meeting with you all on Tuesday. On Wednesday, 2 BPD police officers were at the court. Temporary security that we were allowed to have from Seattle's finest was also there. But for them all being there, things could have been really bad. So when you say it came at 5 o'clock, well, this all happened on Wednesday, Thursday. If I'm in court all day, there's only so much time that I have to draft an agenda bill. And I'm thankful that Melinda assisted with this and she's been following along to try to help us prepare for the 2024 budget year. But before then, this is necessary for us to be able to have the adequate security. And Chief Wolfe has provided as much support and input and advice that he can for us to be able to have Seattle's finest there. There are some state grant funds that are available for small jurisdictions like ours, but it has to be both armed security. It has to meet certain parameters as to what we're bringing in. And that would also be available for the 2024 year, which I'm looking into now. So as the court and the city council the legislative branch that provides funding to the court. The court is also looking at areas in which we can supplement, and when there's a need, new things, bringing in new programs, how funding can be brought in from the state and other entities, the county, the 1/10 of 1%. So I ask that you grant this additional funds, and how my understanding is from Mike and his staff supporting the court is by the end, as far as moving things around that aren't spent, we should not exceed any budget.
Thank you, Judge Denny. Any more?
Yeah, sorry. I think we're all in support of this, and I think we're gonna push this forward if I'm understanding. I think the conversation just switched a little bit, and I just wanted to follow up on the last thing that you said, just so that we're aware. Hiring processes, because I don't know where hiring processes are at with the timeline of hiring processes. You don't think that the personnel funding will be exceeded to come back to us to get back into that? I believe it's expenditures, and I forget the name of that account. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Supply services and taxes, we'll just have to reallocate money.
Got you. Yeah. So
what he said,
so
we'll be
what-
able to do with what Mike is saying, reallocate.
Got you. Okay. That's good to know. Thank you.
I just want to follow up on two quick things. Sorry, unless Young, I think we're having some IT issues. So if Councilmember Younger has questions and can speak up, just speak, but I think he's probably disconnected. On that note about the budgeting codes, Director Riley, can you speak to that in terms of the comment about not getting codes to report expenditures from the courts to finance?
What I just heard from the court is we've received additional grant funding and appropriation from the state that has additional budget revenue codes. I'm unaware of that. I think we're talking about, it sounded like it was the community court therapeutic program, which was brought to council last year for reconfirmation of the program. I'm guessing that's the funding that's available to support the staff member. We also had the 1/10 of 1% for the county to support the staff member, but it sounds like we have additional funding that I was not aware that we were receiving because the council did not sign off on supporting continuing funding from that grant, which was an appropriation. That's what I think I heard, I believe, but
Going to be a bit of a.
So
Yeah.
to
Can you
add on
clarify
to what
what you
he's
were,
saying is
saying with the
we
with the
received
coding? Mhm.
a therapeutic court grant from the state last year, which we came to the city council. In January, as a part of the legislative committee for the District and Municipal Courts Association, we went to Olympia and asked the governor and our legislators to put this into the governor's funding. This was done. So it's a part of appropriations. So when I came to you and asked for your support in the letter, and I said it's changed, it's no longer a grant, even though online it said it was a grant. It's appropriations. So that funding that this court received continues. As of,
Okay,
it
that's
ended
new.
June 30th, and
Go ahead,
there's no
So
Sheila.
let
gap,
me-
and it started again July 1st.
Judge Flood, let me get this straight. So on 6/14, when we denied, support of this therapeutic court rubber stamping, you went ahead and got appropriations anyway on June 30th?
On June 14th, the application had already been submitted. What I asked you for was a letter of support. You denied that.
Right.
But I also explained to you that it wasn't necessary.
Okay.
All right, we'll set that aside as a separate item that I'm guessing we'll discuss in budget season and what that looks like. The only other question I heard, and I wanted to ask Chief Wolfe part of this too, so I want to make this straight. We do not have a contract with Seattle's Finest, but there is some mechanism to call them in. Is that through BPD? Or what's,
No, so the judge and I have been talking for some time now, and we're doing what we can to support the court, but I don't have officers to have down there for security. And we talked about even doing BPD officers on overtime, providing court security. And we don't have that capacity at this time. So I recommended to look at Seattle's Finest, and there's another I forget what one it was, public safety, something from State Patrol, and reach out to those. And this, I think, Seattle's Finest was the most receptive and provided what they were looking for and needed.
Okay, I thought I had heard it stated from the judge that at some point Seattle's Finest was at the court supporting recently. Is that not true? Did I mishear that?
Yeah, they hired some security from
Oh, okay.
Seattle's
All right.
Finest recently.
Gotcha. Okay, so but that's not through an existing contract. That was just able to hire them on a small level. I just want to understand.
Correct. So the court had authority without going to contract to spend money directly. So they actually contact them directly outside of the contracting process. The original ask, I think, was $2,600. And then they brought them on an additional week for about $2,400. And once we triggered, hit about $5,000 is where Melinda was watching closely, working with the judge. And now we're tipping the point to have to actually procure the contract, have a contract executed, and actually do kind of an RFQ analysis. Doesn't be a little bitter, but they do have it. So that at that point, we were made aware of the situation and worked with the judge, tried to find existing funds within the budget, which we were unable to do. Ask the judge to identify line items where they could cut. And that's why we're here tonight, because there is not funding available and they're trending closely to being out of budget by year end. So,
Okay, and that money for that small amount towards Seattle's Finest, that was coming from supply services and taxes?
that is where it's coding to pay for it. There is no budget there, as we
It's now,
discussed.
right, okay.
Even that dollar amount there was not funding for. And it just adds to the request for the budget amendment for year end,
Okay.
most likely.
Thank you. That's clear now. And Chief Wolfe, would you say the court is experiencing a high level of incidents compared to other city buildings?
Yeah, I mean, they're right in
Just
the middle of, if you look at the crime map for Bremerton, the big red dot is sitting right over that entire area.
Correct. No, figured, but due diligence. All right. Any other additional questions, comments, council else? So yeah, Chamberlain, go ahead.
I'm hung up on this. So if there's extra money, then she's not going to be over budget. So what, can you tell me about therapeutic court funding?
There's not additional funding. There's not extra money. I'm not
Okay.
sure I understand the clear question.
Oh, okay. I apologize. My understanding was that well, okay, Judge Flood, did I misunderstand that you said the therapeutic court funding continues?
Oh, you're correct. Yes. Those funds are not eligible for this service. So
Okay.
that was talking about the staff member they're bringing on. We kind of went to the person that we just brought on. I think it's the part-time therapeutic court person.
Okay, because those funds are specifically
Those
designated for that
restricted
FTE.
for community court. There is, in the last round, there was some court security improvement provisions within that grant. That's been exhausted. So this is
Okay.
money that we're not aware of, as we spoke of, as said earlier.
Okay,
So.
all right, thank you.
All right. So I'm hearing the request for paper, i.e. the actual contract, all the proper documentation. So a request for that to come next week. And so is council okay with this going on study session for Wednesday? And then do we want it on general or consent? City council. What did I say? Thank you. City council general business meeting next week. Thank you. Okay. All right. So this will be on general business for next week. And so I got to close with the comment of though with budget season coming up. Sounds like there's a lot of questions to be answered regarding the court's budget. So I don't want to have any surprises, Judge Flood, but there may be some tough questions and really digging into the proposal. So, all right. Thank you so much for being here, Judge Flood and Chief Wolfe. With that, this item will be on general business for next week. I'm sure not going to do item A7 with this. So let's go back to item A6. Oh, okay. And Councilmember Younger had to exit the meeting at 8:28. I know he's on a work trip, so glad he was able to attend for the portion he was able to do. All right, back to item A6. Councilmember Anna Mockler is here to present a proposal to update BMC section 20.02.040 subsection A entitled quote, project permitting processing procedures, type 1 project permits.
Excellent. So this is really just a response to seeing things suddenly appear. It's like seeing buildings suddenly appear in Bremerton. And not having any idea what they are or like, yeah, so they simply appear. So I thought, well, that's odd because in many other cities, they have a big sign that says notice of proposed land use action. And it has a drawing of it, and it has contact information, it has lists the comment period, all that stuff. So I looked at other cities near us and the county because they are all in conformity with, right, because Director Spencer has trained me well that everything has to be in conformity at every level, right? Like a municipality has to be in conformity with the county. The county has to be in conformity with the state. The neck bone's connected to the shoulder bone. I'm sorry. I've really been awake for a long time. I truly beg your pardon. I'm back. So I looked at all of their requirements for public notice. And if you'll look at simply a 2-page summary, trying to do you guys right. The only real difference is, everybody has type 1, type 2, type 3, et cetera, permits. They have conditional use. This is common throughout all of these jurisdictions. But what Paulsbo does is they just say type 1 permits aren't just SEPA exempt. Is that a phrase that everybody knows? SEPA is a big deal. It's like okay. Everybody if you have to do a SEPA review, that's like, oh my gosh. Like if you're putting in new windows, probably don't have to do SEPA review, right? But if you're like trying to expand your footprint into a wetland buffer, you would totally be doing SEPA review. Garrett, you can come sit here and frown more close up.
I'm gonna step in and say avoid personal comments, even though it's in good jest. All right, I know.
No, I want him to frown.
Yeah.
If I'm wrong, I want
Okay.
him to
Anyway.
frown. I do.
Back to the proposal.
Yeah. So here's what happens is, according to Director Spencer, most of our permits are type 1. They're SEPA exempt or they're building, construction, demolition. That's kind of a wide thing. I really like Paulsbo's refinement on that, which is that type 1 permits are of limited or no public interest, right? If you're putting in new windows, limited or no public interest. If you're expanding your garage by 2 foot, probably limited or no public interest. So I would just like the council to consider, as part of our council 2023 goals and priorities, was to increase community engagement. The typical way that DCD notifies people is if it's a large enough project, they'll mail to 300 foot away. But if it's not that large, then here's what you have to do. You have to join the DCD's notify me email list, or you have to regularly scroll their website, or you have to read the legal notices in the Kitsap Sun, or, live less than 300 feet from the site. So, and I'm still trying to chase this other part down where I was told by a DCD staffer that if I wanted to know more about a permit, I had to make a public records request. That seems like a lot of burden to put on the people who live here and who would like to have a chance to comment. It doesn't, certainly Mr. Jackson will inform me of how wrong I am, and that's fine by me. But it doesn't seem like the only person on whom it places any burden is the person who's contemplating a project that is of some public interest. And that means they have to post a placard. It's not, right? And that way the passersby can do it. Did anybody have any questions about the summary that I provided?
Just for clarity, the rest of council, is this something you're looking to get feedback to be a continued discussion, an agenda bill?
I'd like
What's
to know
the
if,
action asked of council?
thank you. Yeah, no, this is information only, but I would like to know if council thinks this is something worth pursuing. if, of course, it turns out that by requiring these placards, we bring all development to a grinding halt or, significantly slow it, then I'm sure we would think differently. But all other things being equal, I think that this would fulfill our duty and responsibility to the people we represent, so that they know what was going on around them. Did that answer your question?
I think so. So looking for, feedback from council if they want.
Yeah, like what's the
Discuss this further.
phrase
Okay.
that you, head nods? Or thumbs up, or
Yeah. Okay.
winks.
Let's go to our usual comments, questions. Yeah. So go ahead, Denny, then Fry. Oh, I saw. No. All right, Fry then Denny.
Nothing on.
Thank you. It's interesting because I recently approached Director Nucky at our district meeting and asked him about signs, if we could put signs up on projects like, over by the YMCA, and you see all the earth movers there and you wonder what's going on with that. And I just took a picture of the apartment, 24 new apartments going in on Wheaton Way. I didn't really know about that, but took a picture of it. Garrett, of course, was very responsive when I asked. But if a sign, the city of Bremerton is bringing you 24 new apartments, I just think, as well as encouraging input, I don't know if we want that at that point, right? When things are already happening. But I do think it's a nice way of letting people know what's going on, and we're proud of it, right? We're proud of it. It gets kind of community excited about earth movers. I don't know. That's all I have. And it's, it's late, but I understand. Yeah.
Denny?
Thanks. This is gonna sound really ignorant of me, Councilmember Mockler. I'm so sorry, but it's late, and I honestly spent most of my brain power on the big issue tonight. So you're just wanting more signage when there's projects of public interest, so that people are on notice. Is that kind of when it boils down to?
When people apply for a permit, if it's, as I say, like really minor, like I'm putting in a new mailbox.
Sure.
You wouldn't even need one for that. But if it's a minor project, so be it. That would be limited to no public interest. But if it's, building 24 apartments, that would be of some public interest. And I think that answer your question.
Yeah, totally.
The
Thank you.
only reason I took such a deep dive, Councillor Dennehy, is insomnia.
It's totally fine. It's not a critique on you. I was reading while you were talking. I just wanted to make sure I was understanding.
Okay.
I'm ready to give a head nod. That sounds reasonable to me. I was just going to ask Garrett, did you want to weigh in on?
Yeah,
If that's possible, sorry.
Yeah, please.
So I have a couple points. First of all, being that when it comes to providing public comment, the biggest issue at stake is if we have a permit that allows for public comment, generally that gives someone standing to appeal. So first of all, I just like to say that Director Spencer has related to council on several occasions to this point that anytime we're going to be revising Title 20 of the BMC, it needs to go through the Planning Commission process, and that the Planning Commission is currently considering the comprehensive plan update. And so now is not a good time for the Planning Commission to be tweaking Title 20 for permit processes. Anybody that's in the audience that has feelings about how permitting should be processed, please direct those comments to bremerton2044.com. We're in the middle of our comprehensive plan update. We would love to hear your opinions. That being said, we will go through the comprehensive plan update process and then directly transition into updating the zoning code. My second point is just to get to the meat of the argument, or excuse me, not the argument, but the item is permit predictability. And that when you give somebody standing to appeal, that makes permit predictability very difficult to understand. It becomes much more risky to apply for a permit and make investments in your city. So as I understand it, this proposal would provide an additional public process for any use, view, height, or footprint increases. And our current Bremerton Municipal Code has regulations for all of those items that went through the public process and were approved through the public process. So this would be potentially another, an additional public process that could potentially invalidate what's on the books already. And once again, if anyone in the audience has feelings about any of those items, about height, footprint, use, proposal, what have you, please send them to our comprehensive plan website. We're looking forward to reading those. Now, lastly, the Department of Commerce estimates that there's going to be a need for another 1.1 million housing units over the next 20 years. And that has brought on this legislative session with the state of Washington, what's being referred to as the year of housing, where there has been a tremendous amount of legislation meant to create housing and do it easily in the state of Washington. And that includes provisions for easing and streamlining the local permit process, including SB 5290, which amended the Local Project Review Act. Now, there are now going to be penalties in the future if permit timelines are not met, up to and including having to partially refund people's permits for not being able to make those timelines. So the state has identified that the local permitting process is a bit arduous as it exists today, and that they are pushing jurisdictions to make that more streamlined in order to create the types of development that we need as far as population and job projections are concerned. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Jackson. So you just transported me back to administrative law 2012. I think the only thing I remember is like the Chevron two-step, but my next question is going to be then to Attorney Fennell. This is basically creating a notice that requires a notice and comment period and then creates standing in the courts based on what Garrett has relayed to us.
Well, right. So the way that our, it would require more working through what the appeal process was, because normally that we would give anyone who had commented would have the right to appeal, which means any of the permits could be held up in an appeal to the hearing examiner that then can be subsequently appealed to
the Superior Court. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, under lupus. So it does open that up. And so keep in mind that type 1 permits are generally the kind that are ministerial in action and like what a word, it's ones that the city should be granting because it's the law.
Gotcha.
Not that a comment's going to be I guess they're the type that there's not really a lot of discretion is how I've generally thought of them in my head. And so I don't know.
Yeah.
Garrett would know more about that, but I'm just saying it does open up whether or not the person making a
slows
comment.
down development and opens up for liability. So unfortunately, I'm going to take away my head nod. I'm so sorry, Councilor Mockler. Unintended consequences. I understand why everybody hates attorneys, but they're looking out for the best. Especially, I think the argument that won me over is the policy argument that the state is making, that they're wanting the city to streamline all jurisdictions to streamline permitting, and not create that extra liability. So I'm going to take it away. Sorry.
Any other comments or questions from council members to our presenter? Yeah, it's good now. Mhm. Okay, all right.
I'll just
Go
be
ahead. Yeah.
really brief. I can, you guys intuited that I had a desire to speak. So currently, we have a place for public comment. Currently, we have a process for public comment and the whole appeal period. It's just buried and mysterious. So here, what we're saying is that by keeping it secret, as it were, comparatively secret, because Mr. Jackson is entirely correct. He is so forthcoming. He answers all the calls. It's just, you gotta know that he's the guy to call. You have to know that a permit application has come in. You have to know that a public comment is there. So that whole process is there. All we would be doing with the sign would be throwing a little sunshine on it. Like, here's the deal.
I feel like we're always having these Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy references. So, are we saying that it was posted at City Hall? But like, so if some major thing is going to happen to property, there's nothing that goes up, or there's a point where they put something up on the property, right? Yeah, if you would indulge.
Yep.
So Councilmember Mockler referenced SEPA earlier. There are variable levels of SEPA, so it stands for State Environmental Policy Act, and that if you hit certain development thresholds, then that triggers SEPA review, and anything that's reviewed under SEPA would get posted. Now, the council has seen in the past to raise that SEPA review to remove, to further define what is a big project and what isn't. So once again, that went through the public process where council decided what is a permit that they want to include the public on and what is not. So we have our current SEPA exemption levels that if you have a building that's under 30,000 square feet or less, then you are exempt from SEPA. So like the new Wendy's on Adele, that didn't require public notice because it's a building that was not seen as needing it.
Right. So, so basically, I'll just use a simple example. If it's a residential neighborhood and there's an empty lot, somebody can build a house with all of our current standards. They don't need to post anything there. Okay. To be honest, I'm fine with that. Although all my life, when I've come across a construction area or a commercial remodel, I always say, and I get people you could call right now and ask if I say this, why don't they put up a sign? But that's different because that's the marketing side of it. That's a great thing to encourage, but that's different than kind of giving notice to that. And if it doesn't trigger things that require a notice, then I can see where it does streamline it. Not a huge bit, but aside from all of this, so right now I'd say you guys have enough on your plate, but I would almost just say take this back and kick it around and see if there's a place that you can meet us part way or something. The intent of what's been discussed here, whether it's kind of the, let be a good neighbor and give people a heads up, or and then maybe you guys come back to us and we can continue the conversation after the comprehensive plan possibly, or does it need to be in the comprehensive plan? Okay, that's all.
And just very briefly, we are listening, and when the council makes suggestions, we definitely log that away for when we will tackle these items in the future. It's not that we're not interested, it's just that we have a full slate on the planning commission's plate, but we do appreciate the ideas and the feedback and look forward to addressing them.
Yeah, I've got any other questions, council? Yeah, and so I want to say I really appreciate the extra noticing, the public intent, the deep dive. But seeing this come up and realizing it's chapter 20, I know we've been here before where any proposal to amend it, as you said, requires planning commission review, and council cannot direct the administration how to run planning commission, and dive into your work plan there from my understanding. So that's under the mayor's administration, but unless, and so with that, it's yeah, I would echo great thoughts, great feedback. My God, Councilmember Mockler, I really appreciate how you can deep dive in each one of these and we get to learn about it. No, I don't mean seriously. It's no, just going back to was that an unintentional pun? Oh no, it's like who knows. Anyway. But yeah, but I can't give a thumbs up for council to take action to amend this when it would have to go through planning commission and staff, and they don't have the bandwidth right now. So I want to make that clear. But yeah, if you have but I'll ask the question to you.
Yeah, just
You think
really
that's
quick,
incorrect?
if every 10 years DCD can't amend any non-emergency Title 20, perhaps we could find some workaround for that in the future, because 2 years out of every 10, is that correct, Mr. Jackson, that you're working on the comp plan? Yeah, like, let's, let's not sleep. That's easy. And think about that a bit.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I've had some constituents with what I thought were fairly easy code updates, even outside Title 20, and I know staff is slammed and it's tough to get in. No, I appreciate that too, but I also know I'm sure DCD would love a lot more staff and more bandwidth and be able to do everything everywhere all at once. But okay, so I'm not seeing enough head nods for this to proceed, but point well taken and a lot of great information learned. All right. Thank you, Councilmember Muckler, for the presentation. Thank you, Mr. Jackson, for staying so late to provide all the extra information. I am sorry you were the last. Council, I ain't doing rules and procedures yet again because it is late. Maybe one of these days we'll have I'm tabling it. I'm tabling rules and procedures. It is. I don't have the brain power to go through that. Okay, maybe our next study session will be shorter. Yeah. I'm not putting it at the front of the agenda. All right, let's knock out general council business. All right, item B1, I'm going to invite Audit Committee Chair Anna Mockler to provide a summary of the Audit Committee on August 28th.
So the auditor has basically completed the preliminary draft list of all city-owned properties that was sent to Attorney Finnell. We applauded her a whole heck of a lot. It's still being reviewed by legal, etc. And we urged her to move on to the next item, which is land.
Yeah, and then, sorry, thank you. Yeah, so sorry about the room conversation.
We urged her to move on to landlord license compliance. This is a database that DCD has been asking for a while, and it's a way to ensure that the rentals in Bremerton are habitable and that we have a list of them. So if, for example, we want to say, hey, this cool new program is available, we have a mailing list that we can send out to all the landlords. Other than that, we have changed the meeting date from 4th Monday to 3rd Monday, which will be nice because it won't conflict with Christmas and Thanksgiving. And other than that, we were not devastated, but we were sad about the absence of Councillor Dennehy at the meeting. Yeah, that's it.
Can I just jump in with one comment there?
Sure.
I just want to publicly recognize Chair Mockler and the auditor and Christine's really hard work on both compiling. Yeah, Christine's amazing. Like they're compiling both the affordable housing lists that we were then able to use in debate tonight and in the current process of making sure that rentals are habitable. So thank you.
Sounds like good news all around. Yeah, can't wait to read that report when it comes out all written. Excellent. And still looking for a CPA member seat. Is that right? I just want to, yeah.
I have approached a couple of CPA firms in Kitsap County. Oh, shoot, there was one thing I forgot because I don't want to do it, so I forgot to do it. But I've been approaching legislators and everybody that I can, because before the state legislature comes back into session, we need a CPA. The audit committee has now been without a CPA since June. They asked me to extend the search to the Kitsap Peninsula. My experience has been that the CPA we found was not even willing to spend $250 to retain his Washington certification to stay on the committee. People who are not connected in any way to Bremerton, but I promised that I would bring it to you, so I am bringing it to you. If you feel we should expand it to a larger area, we will do so.
Yeah, personally support that. Just council, last year did update the, bylaws so that we could have a CPA specifically that is from, believe anywhere in Washington. if My memory's right. Yeah. Or at least that there was no location-based criteria for the CPA. Have to look it up. Washington certified. That's right. And that was the issue. Okay. So Washington. Yeah. So definitely support. And if there are any CPAs that are bored at 9 o'clock on a Wednesday watching a council meeting that also has spare time to volunteer for a city, let us know. We know you're out there. All right. Thank you, Chair Mockler. Unless any other burning questions on that, I'll pass it over to Public Safety Committee Chair Fry. If there's anything from the September 5th Public Safety meeting we didn't already talk about tonight.
The only extra thing I would think would just be to reiterate the impact of the loss of the levy on the fire and police departments. It was already hard to recruit and retain, and now it's even harder. One thing I've learned is that our law enforcement and fire professionals are really looking for opportunity for advanced training, for specialized training, and the smaller departments, just can't offer that the way the larger departments do. And so anyway, I think they're continuing to do well besides that, but they're stretched mighty thin. And what we're seeing on the streets, it's hard as we talk about all what we're doing right now with this camping ordinance. I think it's important to remember that the other people that are affected by it are our law enforcement and fire EMTs that respond to the emergencies. Many of them are health emergencies. So anyway, the morale is not super high right now in those departments. So, and we're looking forward to just hearing what the plans are possibly to reintroduce that opportunity at another time. I think everybody was trying to take responsibility. The union was taking responsibility, the chiefs were taking responsibility, and yeah, so disappointing.
Karen. Yeah. Oh, goodness. Good enough. Go ahead.
I wanted to provide an update that I didn't provide at public safety and that I'd meant to, because we were talking about other things. And it came up in a comment last week about funding spent on our ILA with Kitsap County to divert some of our cases to Kitsap County. I just wanted to update that none of that money has been spent. The Kitsap County actually has not been able to help us at all. And so we have not forwarded any cases under that ILA. They ran into staffing issues on the public defense side and actually had to issue a letter earlier this month that they're not, they're in a crisis as well with regard to public defenders. So we have not received any relief from the county on that. And I meant to report out on that at public safety and I didn't. So.
Yeah, that was a citizen question.
Please, let's make sure we cover that at the next public safety meeting, because I think that really needs to be known out there.
I just wanted to comment on the ballot initiative. I've talked to so many people because if they complain about anything, I'm like, well, and it's an overwhelming number of people said, I meant to vote.
Oh.
I mean, it's no, because I get in enough trouble as it is, but it was a weird thing. One thing on the ballot. I don't know. I mean, it's so, I don't know if it's as resounding a signal from the community as it seems, but we have to, yeah, it was, it's crazy. People just try to do their best to check out.
Yeah. Well, I'll comment too that I also think there was just a general lack of leadership on organizing a campaign for that. I mean, yeah, I mean, gosh, our police and fire staff are spread so thin. They don't have a lot of spare personal time to be doing this on their own. yeah, there really needed to be a spearheading committee that actually formed like a normal group that would support a ballot initiative and go out and do the pro statements and, yeah, so I think we should keep discussing that. Because I know this council obviously supported putting it on the ballot and going forward with it. So great to hear public safety maybe brainstorm on how to make that successful.
Chief Wolfe did mention that he had not been aware of the resources available through unions for something like this. So I think that the fire department was much more well aware of that, but still they weren't able to mobilize because of what you're talking about, burnout and scheduling and, you know, all of that.
Sorry, I have to clamp down on side conversations just for public awareness and record. No, it's good. Yeah, I know. I know.
What did I just say? Oh, he said he hadn't been as well aware as he should be about opportunities within the union, the police union, for supporting this kind of a dcampaign. Isn't that, I think I remember, yeah.
The FOP, they just kind of signed up with the FOP recently and they
Yeah.
didn't, but they're gonna be better next time with the
Yeah,
units.
yeah.
They know more. They know better now.
Well, thanks for continuing to discuss that. Any other regional or committee boards briefings? Go ahead, Makla.
Sorry.
Yep.
Kitsap Transit Board approved a new safety plan. We're gonna be fare free Sundays through the end of 2024. 2024 goals, here's the ones I added in, which is restore Sunday service in full. Dial-a-ride, expand Dial-a-ride to Bremerton. It's in Paulsbo, it's in Bainbridge, it's in lots of other places in Kitsap, not here. And it's also a way, Dial-a-ride, it's where you just,
Sorry, microphone just for online. I know.
I said I thought they were just announcing I was going to Bremerton. I thought I just saw in the news or the Kitsap Transit blog, that they
Great.
were doing the kind of like I want to call it BI ride because they've had it for 100 years. But this one is
well, they have the BI ride and they have it in Paulsbo, but they keep telling me that it is too expensive to do it in Bremerton. And I've asked for like how much it would cost and I keep not getting it. Really happy to be wrong on this. Anyhow, they use the ridership data from that to determine where new routes need to be. So it, like, as the densest, largest city on the peninsula, it'd be a help. Really interesting thing, former Senator Christina Rolfs was looking at the list of surplus vehicles. And she said, why can't we sell them at fair market value to nonprofits? And we all went, what a great idea. So I'm passing that on to you guys. And 94% of the 2,300 passengers who rode the Silverdale Bremerton ferry were like, make it permanent. That's it.
Ooh.
Unless you want to hear details of the new safety plan.
I'll read up on it. I have one quick one, which was the Eric Morley, who's been leading the Bremerton Ferry Coalition, hosted a meeting. It was not open to the public, but it was a really well attended meeting. I went for council, mayor was there, a bunch of other elected officials like Senator Randall, folks from Washington State Ferries, Kitsap Transit, John Clausen, I mean, and a lot of other community members, and it was a really good brainstorming activity. So I'll mention my council report next week, but I wanted to just say out loud a big kudos to Eric Morley for getting that group of people together to brainstorm solutions, and he did a really and several other people were instrumental in making that happen. And I'm not going to try and remember all the other names, but yeah, brainstorming what to happen the next year, 2 years, 10 years out. So that was a great meeting.
Dial-a-ride
Oh,
is different
Sorry,
from
back to
Sunday.
the transit. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. The Sunday bus service is starting in Bremerton. It's gonna run from the ferry up Wheaton, up Warren. Sorry, I really am tired now. It's gonna run up to Riddell and possibly past Riddell to Silverdale, and it will be free. The mayor is planning to ride it on the first day, so are many luminaries. So it might be something you guys want to do.
I know. Incorporating the on-demand dial, right? Not just on Sunday. Okay, let's hash that one. Let's hash that one out offline or present it in a council report next week. Let's present a council report next week. All right, good. All right,
You
Vice
want me
President
to-
Chamberlain.
Maybe you want me to present it at my council report, but let me tell you, you guys, that Sugar Pine neighborhood had like 150 people show up. The mayor was there. The chief of police was there. Y'all, it's online. I got yelled at a little bit for something that I'm glad it's no longer going to be my responsibility after we pass an ordinance. But I will share a little bit more about that at the next council meeting. I have contacted everybody in my district. I've kept up on that I can tell. I've contacted everybody with a follow-up, and y'all saw it. There's a lot of people. So thank you.
I'll say, well done. It's not easy on those meetings, but I'll, unless, is there any other burning general or council business? Okay. No, but I will close with just a thanks to each and every one of you. And when Councilmember Younger views the recording for, again, oh, sorry, you have a general council business? Okay. Oh, microphone. Yeah, thank
Can
you.
we please put it on the agenda to figure out a way to actually enforce the agenda policy? Because things flying in here within, less than 24 hours and sometimes after the meeting has begun, we can't do our job. If it's not an emergency, I'd really like to figure out some way. Like I think
respond.
let's have council be the bad cop and the staff can be the good cop.
So, yeah, I'll respond. 99% of the time, agenda policy is followed. Department heads especially do a fantastic job of getting things on time. In rare circumstances for city departments, looking at Director Nucky sitting over there, for example, he'll, once in a while call me up and say, this just popped up, and we'll talk through it and I'll go, yes, that's clearly a truly unexpected pop-up event. Put it on yes, absolutely. That should go on the agenda. So whoever's in the seat, council president can grant exceptions to the policy to allow things on the agenda. In this case, with Judge Flood's request, it was only due to the security concerns that I did not want to say, so sorry, too bad, wait 2 more weeks to the next study session because it sounded urgent. And I do not like doing that. I do not like granting exceptions last minute, knowing the chaos it causes. So I really do appreciate the comments on that, but the agenda policy is being followed, but I do exercise the rare exception to let something on outside that procedure. It is rare compared to the number of items that come through. Boom. What was I saying? Thank you. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm like, what? No, thanks to each and every one of you for tackling a really difficult issue. I just want to say again, I'm going to keep saying it. I'm proud of all of us. I'm proud of this council. We did not shy away for what is probably one of the most pressing issues of our time in trying to find a solution. And I will not apologize for spending time, effort, discussion. Even if some folks got scared, even if some folks, it drove out community engagement. We've heard from so many and no, this is not passed yet or anything, but I just want to say I'm really proud. That's all. I think we're all doing our jobs, and that's really important. And we're all showing true leadership for the city. So I will close on that and say that the next council meeting is on Wednesday, September 20th, beginning at 5:30 p.m. in the meeting chambers, with, as always, a remote option available by Zoom. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.